Ready whenever you are, Dr. Fletcher.
So I'm going to call this Board of Education meeting to order. It is January 25th, 2023. The time now is 7:00 p.m. As you are able, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, and I'm going to ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Michael Branda.
Here.
Danielle Drost.
Here.
Dr. Bruce Fletcher.
Here.
Beth Menke Wagner.
Here.
Richard LaVerriere.
Here.
Amy Parati.
Here.
Sam Sharma. Sam Sharma. Jessica Weaver.
Here.
Anastasia Yap.
Here.
I have everyone here except Mr. Sharma.
Okay. So we're going to now move to agenda item B, which is our presentation of awards and our proclamations. So this is our Everyday Hero Award, and it's going to be presented to Mark Manuel, a bus driver. This is in recognition of your positive impact on students and for going above and beyond and keeping the children safe on their bus ride home during a serious situation occurring on the route and making safety of the children your top priority. And it's dated January 25th, 2023. Congratulations to you and thank you so very much. Dr. Brummett, would you like to make some comments?
Yes, I would. I actually have now, interestingly enough, Mark was nominated by not only Dean Barnes, but several members of the Board of Education when they saw the videotape of how you handled the accident. And this is what Dean wrote in his nomination. On Tuesday, January 10th afternoon, Mark was returning students from Anna Reynolds' home on bus E. While traveling East Street in New Britain, he observed a small SUV following a line of traffic that began to veer into his lane. Mark was rapidly considering countermaneuvers to go left or right, but these options were not possible. Mark was coming to a stop while blasting his horn to attempt to get drivers' attention to avoid the collision, but the driver noticed too late and struck the bus head on. He immediately began to check on the students of the bus who had no idea what had just happened. He called out to the students several times to verify they were okay. He called into the transportation office to summon assistance and police and medical support to his location. He kept the students seated and calm. He asked them several more times if everyone was okay. He awaited for assistance to arrive. It was his reaction and handling of the situation in this manner that he did that allowed the students to have a positive outcome of what could have been a very difficult situation, considering all that takes place in an accident like this. And Mark, the board has seen the video. I shared it with them because I was so impressed with how you handled that significant situation with such grace and following all the procedures that I'm sure you've had training on. But we are just so grateful that you did such a wonderful job on behalf of our students. So I will turn it back over to you, Dr. Fletcher.
All right, very good. So any board members that wish to make comments, we'll give you a chance in a moment. I'm going to ask Mark if there's anything he would like to say.
Hi, I'm not one much for speeches, but I'm very humbled. I'm glad everything turned out as well as it did. Thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. And we have the director here, Dean Barnes, as well. Would you like to say anything? I'm not sure if he heard me or... All right. So at this time, I'm going to give board members an opportunity to speak. I'm going to go in the order that your name is on here. So first is going to be Anastasia Yap.
Hi, I would like to say thank you so much for your, fast acting, ability to keep everybody safe. I was one of the board members who definitely nominated you for this award. And, doing a volunteer event, I was able to meet some of your other coworkers, and they had nothing but positive things to say about you. And they always say how you always go above and beyond for the other students and for, your coworkers. So I'm really happy that you were nominated for this. I've heard nothing but positive things about you in the community from your coworkers, and congratulations. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Miss Beth Hutt-Wagner.
Yes, thank you. You absolutely are incredibly deserving of this award, and truly a hero. Watching that video as somebody who wasn't there was scary, and though I was watching it afterwards in a video, your demeanor, the way you spoke to the children was so calming, so reassuring. It just made me so confident in all of our bus drivers, but really I see you as a leader, and the kind of the precedent and the tone you set. And so just thank you. I truly consider you a hero. Thank
you very much. Richard Leverrier.
Hi, thanks, Mark. I watched the video, and it was crazy image with the accident in the corner of the picture frame. But the way that you made sure that all the kids were safe and not injured, that made me feel better watching it. When they were all screaming, yes, all in unison, it was cute, but it was very good that we heard that. And one thing that really stood out, one of the students said to you is, are they okay? And you said, I don't know, but I'm just glad that you're okay. You're a leader of the kids, and we're all, I'm going to speak on behalf of everybody here. We are all very grateful that you're part of NPS. Thank you very much, Mark.
Thank you. And Amy Parati.
Thanks. Just to echo what everyone said, we're super proud of you. You're so deserving. Watching that video, I think Beth said, it gave me chills just, seeing what happened and how calmly you react. You reacted, you immediately thought of the kids, you did the right thing, checked on them again. So it was amazing. And I just want to give a quick shout out to, I believe his name is Noah, one of your students who asked if you were okay and checked on everyone else on the bus. So, he was awesome too. So you're definitely a leader of the bus, and we're so lucky to have you, and thank you for everything you do. And I'm glad you're okay.
Okay, thank you. And Jessica Weaver?
Yeah, wow. I think when we had this award in mind, and when Dr. Brummett had this award in mind, we were thinking, everyday hero, in our classroom, and how much we love our teachers. And I just feel like as of late, there have been several crises with a lot of just life or death situations sometimes, and some very severe instances where our student safety is at hand. And I really think this hero, Everyday Hero Award, is really putting the emphasis on hero as of late. And Mark, you're really embodying that definition of everyday hero. We don't want to see what just happened every day, but knowing that you're there every day for these kinds of moments is just so comforting, I think, to everyone, not just who has a child in the school, but everyone in the community, knowing that our students are safe with you. So just so appreciative. Again, thank you for letting us honor you. I know we all saw, I think Amy immediately typed, we need to make sure he's an everyday hero. I mean, it's just one of those things where you see just those stark images, and this is really the least we can do. So thank you so much for what you do every day, and especially on this day. Congratulations.
Thank you. And Michael Branda.
Thank you, Dr. Fletcher. Yeah, I think it always probably should go without saying that we have the most caring drivers here, and we are so lucky that they work for our district, and we have our own buses, and these are our employees that see our kids every day. Mark, your impact on the kids on days when there isn't an accident is immeasurable, but I think on this day, obviously, you went above and beyond that. And so another thing that we probably don't talk about enough is just that how well trained our bus drivers are, and that we keep up with that. So I do want to just mention a thank you to Dean Barnes, because as Ms. Weaver mentioned, we've had a few incidents recently, and I think the training that our staff gets really helps empower our drivers to make the best decisions and keep the children's safety first. But really just thank you, Mark, for everything that you do for your fast act, and really just putting the kids' safety first. So thank you and congratulations.
All right. Thank you, Michael. And Sam Sharma.
Hey, Mark, as a board member and as a parent, like I was watching the video and, it was, thanks for like keeping your calm, and thank you for, not panicking and not letting the kids panic. So, you are a true hero. So thank you so much again.
All right. Thank you very much. And Dr. Brummett.
Thank you. Mr. Barnes cannot get his mic to work. So on behalf of Mr. Barnes, he wanted me to say, I'm very proud to have Mark as part of the team. He is a great example.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
Oops.
Look, Beth, your hand is still up. Was that inadvertent? Okay. All right. So thank you. And once again, Mark, thank you so very much for being so conscientious and calm in the midst of a storm. We really do appreciate that. You showed a lot of professionalism. All right. So we're going to move on to agenda item C, which is our public participation on any matter related to board responsibilities. I'm not sure. I don't think we can call because it's virtual only. So
Good
if there's,
point.
What's that?
That's accurate. So
Okay.
they need to just dial into the Google Meet.
Okay, so yeah, they can dial into the Google Meet, and if you are a member of the public and you wish to speak at this time, we will give you 3 minutes to do so. If you'd like to do that, please go ahead and raise your hand, and we will stand by for a few moments and see if we have anybody that wishes to take advantage of this. All right, I don't see anybody making a move. No hands have been raised. So I'm now going to move us on to agenda item D, which is our consent agenda. And the first one is going to be the approval of the minutes from December 14th, 2022. But before we can do that, there is an amendment that needs to be made on it, on the main page. It shows me as being present, but I was actually not there. So if the clerk or someone can take note of that so it can be amended. Mr. Ost.
So don't we have to vote on it, then decline it, then vote on the amendment?
I don't think we need to go to that because I'm not shown as being present on the top. So it could just be, it's like it's a typo. If you look at the people that were present, my name is not in there. So we could just say as amended, as Mr. Branda has said.
That's what I would recommend.
Yeah. So is everybody good with that? All right, then I will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting, December 14th, 2022, as amended.
Second.
And I have a second on that as well. So we're going to just do a quick call. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed say nay. Okay, the ayes have it. So that consent agenda has been approved. We can now move on to the next one. and that is going to be the approval of the minutes from the January 11th, 2023 regular meeting.
Sure, we'll
Do I
just make
have
it
a motion on that?
happy double here. Motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting, January 11th, 2023.
All right.
Second.
Motion has been seconded as well. Again, all those in favor
Aye.
say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed say nay. Okay, the ayes have it. And that takes care of our consent agenda. Now we're going to turn the meeting over to Dr. Brummett for the Superintendent of Schools report.
Thank you very much, Dr. Fletcher. First up, it is my pleasure to introduce Samantha Lee. She is the head of reference services at the Enfield Public Library, where she's been for 15 years. She is also the chair of the Connecticut Library Association Intellectual Freedom Committee. And we have had the pleasure of hearing Samantha speak to our entire administrative team a few weeks ago, where we were all very pleased with what we learned about how to handle when books are contested within a school district, or in her world as well, in a library, a public library. I will tell you that her work, together with Wendy Krause and her committee, has really informed how we will be handling anytime a book is brought up as a concern by a parent or any member of our community. And we thought we would share tonight with the board some of the key points that we learned about through her presentation, as I mentioned, to our administrative team. So without further ado, Samantha, would you like me to post your slides, or do you want to present?
I'm happy to present.
Perfect.
Okay.
And welcome to the Newington Board of Education.
Thank you. Very honored to be here. Let me pull up my presentation. Okay. I'm hoping folks can see that.
Yeah, I believe it is showing on our screens. Does anyone not see it?
Okay.
Okay, the floor is yours, Ms. Lee.
Okay. Wonderful. Just a point of correction. I haven't been at the Enfield Public Library for 15 years. I've been working in libraries for almost the last 20, but I've only been at Enfield for the last 6. And I serve as the co-chair of the Intellectual Freedom Committee for the Connecticut Library Association. And now I'm looking at my screen and it's blank. Is it blank for other folks too?
Yes, it just went white.
Okay.
There it goes.
Okay, there it goes. Okay, so we're going to talk about freedom to read in school libraries. I'm going to try and go through this quickly. Please interrupt me with questions or concerns, but we'll go from there. All right. So we're going to start with constitutional foundations. This is the First Amendment. I'm sure we're all very familiar with it. But essentially, the First Amendment is first because it is foundational to democracy. It allows for the free exchange of ideas, and with free exchange of ideas without government interference. That is very specific here. This allows discussion to ferment, for ideas to exchange, and for the cream of those ideas to rise to the top. So generally the right to free speech is interpreted to protect individuals in society from government attempts to suppress ideas and information, and to forbid government censorship of books, magazines, newspapers, as well as art, film, music, and materials on the internet. Now, freedom of speech is very specific here. It does not mean that anybody is free from the responsibility of their speech. The consequences of your speech is not government suppression. It is not censorship. Consequences of your speech, you being held responsible for your speech, is not necessarily censorship until the government steps in and limits your speech. So The corollary to the freedom of speech is also the freedom to read. Now, freedom of speech means nothing unless other people can hear it, can read it, can see it, can receive it, and then to consider them. In 1968, there's this really beautiful opinion from Justice Brennan that formalized that the freedom of speech has a corollary to the freedom to receive speech. And most importantly, at the time, it meant freedom to read. And that's where libraries live. And that's a really special place that libraries have in protecting democratic thought and democratic ideals. You might already be familiar with this since it's now codified in the reconsideration guidelines that were updated by Wendy. But here's the Library Bill of Rights. These Bill of Rights are deeply informed by constitutional law and case law, which I'll go over a little bit in a bit. But these are foundational rights that libraries, public libraries, school libraries, academic libraries hold very near and dear to our profession. The corollary to that is also the freedom to read statement. There's a full statement on this. This is just a brief excerpt, but these are foundational documents that we use in libraries to defend the freedom to read and to protect the freedom of speech. So we're going to jump into the legal framework. I should preface this by saying I am not a lawyer, but these are case laws and legal frameworks to use when we're talking about the freedom to read and intellectual freedom. The first case I want to point out, especially for a Board of Education, is Tinker versus Des Moines. This is the first case that established that students have a First Amendment right to free speech. This is pretty revolutionary and radical at the time, but they recognized that in order for us to have a healthy, thriving democracy, we have to guarantee that the youngest of us, the youngest citizens, also have the same rights as the oldest, because without practicing those freedoms, without practicing those rights and being in a safe place to do so, they are not going to be able to perpetuate democracy. So this is a really cool moment in our country's history, and that we recognize that while students are in schools' care, they still have the freedom of speech, the freedom of expression. And Tinker codifies that in that case. Moving on is the Pico case. So what's really interesting about this is that after it was established in Tinker that students have First Amendment rights in 1969, there was this interesting case in Pico whereby a school board removed books for being, quote, anti-American, anti-Christian, anti-Semitic, and just plain filthy. So they received a list of books deemed inappropriate by the parents of New York United. The board then temporarily removed the books from the school libraries and formed a committee to review the list. Now, what's really interesting is that the committee found that 5 of the 9 books should be returned, but the board overruled that decision and returned only 2. Now, this went through the courts, and what the courts found, relying on the precedent set by Tinker, was that school boards still need to respect students' First Amendment right to free speech. So while boards may not remove books from school libraries because they dislike the ideas in those books, to remove it would be unconstitutional, because that would be an infringement upon the students' First Amendment rights to free speech. And this is reaffirmed again in Case versus United School District. In this instance, the school board, in addition to removing a book, they deemed inappropriate, circumvented their policies to do so. I want to bring attention to the highlighted part that because the school district in this case ignored their established policy and procedure, they were found to have unconstitutional motivation in doing so, and that their actions were deemed unconstitutional. So this is a really great example as to why boards and school districts need to follow their established policies. This case in particular, Case versus Unified School District, that was another case, but in the public arena, whenever unconstitutional motivations were found for a book removal, in those instances, the responsible parties for the removal were found to also be financially liable, and they had to pay the legal fees for both sides. It was extremely costly in the Wichita Falls case in Texas, which I did not include in here, but it is something to remember and keep in mind that failure to follow established policy and procedure may be considered unconstitutional motivation to remove books. And here, this is from the Connecticut General Statutes. I've been, as intellectual freedom co-chair, I've been seeing really problematic dialogue and rhetoric when it comes to the use of obscenity. We have a statute on the books in Connecticut that defines what obscenity is. And it's very strict rules based off of the Miller test, that the material has to be taken as a whole, that we don't take individual scenes out of context, that it has to depict it or describes offensive way a sexual act. And only if all these factors are satisfied can speech be given rise to criminal liability in an obscene matter. And all of these check marks here or criteria needs to be applied to to ordinary adults applying contemporary community standards. And with this statute, it is understood that contemporary community standards means the state of Connecticut is deemed to be the community. All right, so we're jumping into policies and procedures. Now, we're going to take a step back, and I might have jumped into this really much too quickly. But there is a difference between a book ban and a challenge. Now, a challenge is an attempt to remove materials based off of objections from a person or a group. It's not just a point of view, but truly somebody wanting to remove the material and restricting access to others. A ban is when that actually happens, when a challenge is successful and those materials are removed. But when it comes to removal of materials, we're going to talk about collection development. This is a term we use in libraries that talks about how we build materials and collections for a library. We have policies, libraries have policies in place that says that we are selecting materials that reflect our library's mission, our guiding principles, reflective of our community, needs of our community, and it's a set bit of criteria. Now, we also, in addition to collecting materials, we also remove materials. And a collection development policy will outline how things are removed as well. If things are out of date, if they're inaccurate, if they are, if their condition is such that it's not fun to read a book that's falling apart, it's obsolete, or it doesn't fit the needs, or have too many copies. A collection development policy, which Newington now does have, and an excellent one, by the way. Good job, Wendy. this provides a framework and an outline as to what a collection should entail and encompass. Now, when we build collections, we also have the opportunity for reconsiderations. What's really cool about reconsiderations is it's keeping the 14th Amendment alive for due process. So we librarians are human. Selections, sometimes it is quite frankly impossible to read every single book as they come into our library's collection. Something, I don't remember the number, but I think something like 40,000 books get published every year. It is impossible to read all of those. So as librarians, we rely on professional reviews, purchase suggestions, and the like to buy items into our collection. However, sometimes there will be items in the collection that are inappropriate, and that's an opportunity for community members to submit their concerns. This is the 14th Amendment due process alive and well. And so libraries will have reconsideration policies and procedures. So to have these policies is going, especially to be familiar with your reconsideration policy, is going to save you a headache, especially because these processes can be extremely disruptive if you aren't familiar with those policies. Right now, I know I looked over the reconsideration guidelines. They are top notch. It's one of the best policies I've seen written from a public school district. I do not say that lightly. I've looked over lots of policies at other libraries, but that's what a reconsideration policy is. Best thing to do is to follow those policies. You do not want to be seen or be perceived as having unconstitutional motivation to remove a book. So follow your policies. If there's a timeline, follow that timeline. The committee makeup, especially when the policies outline what information is used to make that decision, make sure you follow those. And then a letter to complain can include everything about your collection development policies, intellectual freedom statements, which is your how a district would affirm a student's First Amendment rights and their freedom to read, and also professional reviews. One place that's really great for professional reviews is a school library journal when it comes to materials for school-age children, but also Common Sense Media, which gives great outlines and information as far as ages and what's appropriate and what may not be. That is also a great resource for parents to decide what reading materials might be appropriate for their children versus others, but that's a decision for the parent to decide. And we certainly don't make decisions as with one parent overriding another, because that is a very personal decision to be making. And again, students still have First Amendment rights in the school. So that was fast and furious. That is my contact information. I'm happy to answer any questions or provide clarification. Oops.
All right. So we do have someone with a question, Danielle Drost.
So I just want to, I'm trying to turn my camera on. Not a pretty scene in my house. I'm not used to this. I have a clarification. So you referred to a policy. That's the one coming out of the curriculum, right? From Wendy. I just want to clarify because.
Oh, yes.
Okay. Because I don't want to.
Sorry, my apologies. I come from the library arena, so we refer to them as policies. But yes, that would be coming out from your curriculum.
I just want to make sure because, like, you're talking and Jess Weaver's like smiling, and I'm like, That's actually not our policy, Jess.
Right.
No, I was just excited for Wendy, to be honest.
Oh, okay. So I just wanted clarification that I hadn't lost my mind. Thank you.
Yeah, Danielle, thank you for bringing that up. And as Samantha said, she's using that word policy. We have, as you all have seen, the library media policy. We reviewed a couple of meetings ago. You've seen that. We have a few policies. This would be more part of the regulations and how we do business behind the scenes. So that reconsideration, we call it reconsideration guidelines, is really what that's referring to. And I just wanted to add to that as well that we've had a lot of that in place previous to this year. The library media department has all those things that Samantha was going through in regards to how they build their collection, how they weed, is all part of their written information and has been for quite a while. This year, we have gone back in and revisited everything and revamped it. And after Samantha shared information with the administrative council, we did some further revisions, and the media specials have been a large part of that. So a big shout out to that department.
Thank you, Wendy. Michael Branda.
Thank you, Dr. Fletcher. Yeah, just really quick, Samantha, I just wanted to thank you actually, because this was such great information. It's kind of like one of those topics that everybody thinks they know all the things, and then you see it all on a slide and you're like, okay, that's why we do what we do, right? And honestly, I'm glad that Mrs. Stroh's brought up the policy, because that's what I took note of. I was like, wow, I'm so glad to hear that our policy is top notch. Like, that's just such a great thing to hear. And parents should be really happy with that on whichever side of this issue they are. At least I think it provides everybody an opportunity to have that discussion. And I think that that's just really great to hear from an expert. I'm not sure if I have any questions, but I did see your email, and I was just thinking, like, if we had questions, maybe we send them to Dr. Brummett to pass them on to you. Because I'm sure people in the public, as this recording goes out, they might see it and maybe bring a question to one of us, and maybe it might just be best to send those to Dr. Brummett and get all the answers at once. But thank you so much.
Thank you. You're very welcome. Thank you.
Jessica Weaver.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to say thank you. As Ms. Rose noted, I was smiling a lot because I just think, one, I love to hear that our district is doing well. And I was smiling because Wendy had given us on the curriculum committee kind of a brief kind of precursor of this when we were kind of discussing, hey, if this comes up, we're seeing a lot of, are we seeing this? Kind of the history of that. And she really had said how long these policies have been in place and just kind of the revamping of it this year. And it's just great to have both that for context, because I think it's really helpful, not just for us as board members, but us as the public. I think even in our discussions of how we shape policy, I think sometimes we're like, we need to be a guide and help advocate and help educate ourselves and the public on these processes. So just really appreciate that. It's always fun to learn more case law, especially when you're like, it brings you back to AP US history. So it's just a nice full circle moment. So appreciate you taking the time to present to us tonight.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right. Dr. Brummett.
I just want to once again thank Samantha. My apologies. The bio I got was off online. See, the perils of relying on online information. So, but nevertheless, thank you for straightening that out. But needless to say, you have tremendous expertise. I'm actually having Samantha come to another committee that I'm on, and they're all excited to. It's a bunch of superintendents and assistant superintendents who oversee curriculum are going to hear the same message statewide, because we're all grappling with this statewide. And I have to say, I am proud of everyone on this call, those that you serve on the committees that do policy and curriculum work. As we've already said, Wendy, Steve, we're really getting ahead of this, doing it thoughtfully so that we can handle what comes our way without making any knee-jerk decisions, but really rely on our policy, rely on our procedures, and treat every situation, fairly and by our policy. So once again, thank you, Samantha. And we do have your contact information. The board did get this presentation, I believe, in their packet. So we will have that as a reference. So much appreciated.
All right. Thank you, Samantha.
And if I may, Dr. Fletcher, I was approached by a board member who asked if we could provide a quick update as part of my update about where we stand with the reading waiver process.
Yes.
Just as a backdrop, I'm very actively reaching out to Representative Turco, Representative Curry, who is on the co-chair of the Education Committee at the state level, about can we modify the legal, what's happening with districts more or less being forced to adopt a program or defend the program they're using. But we've chosen to submit our program again with more information. And I'm going to turn it over to Wendy, who is on point for this, so that she can share with the board where we stand with the waiver process.
Thank you, Dr. Brummett. So good evening again. Yes, we are well on our way writing the waiver. The waiver application is due to the state at the end of February 28th. The application itself has been released. I'm working with a committee to draft our response. It is comprehensive. There are 9 guiding questions that we are focusing on that are provided in the waiver. Then there's an opportunity to share your data and kind of tell your story through that. And then we also need to share our strategy around addressing the achievement gaps, the reading achievements specifically. So we've drafted a good amount of that already. We're meeting regularly to go through it. And as Dr. Brummett said, the real reason we're resubmitting is that we have an opportunity in this go around to be more comprehensive about our model and the program, not just saying this is a published program that we're using, but what does our whole curriculum look like? And I'm really pleased about that. As you know, from when I shared a couple meetings ago about our curriculum, it's not just one program that we use, it's several resources and that meet different needs within the reading. But the real focus of the application is to demonstrate that your curriculum model or program is evidence-based and scientifically based, and that there's opportunities for explicit instruction across all those areas that we went through in the reading. We need to ensure that we have included all of those, and our program is certainly comprehensive in that regard. So we will submit that by February 28th. It's our understanding, we don't have a timeline of how quickly the state will respond, but it's our understanding that they will read our application and then they will be in touch with me as the point person with to get more information if they need it, like that they've kind of said it could be a back and forth like that. It could be that some components are accepted, others are not, and we have to go back at it. But we're not really clear on what that timeline will look like.
Thank you, Wendy. And I would echo that I have not heard how quickly we can expect to hear back. I will just also mention that, and this was another conversation that was asked, if for some reason they say your program is not going to be approved, which of course we'll fight, but if that does become the issue, then we can ask for an extension of up to a year to figure out next steps. So that is kind of our position right now, but obviously we're also approaching it from the legislative angle. And I will turn it back to Dr. Fletcher to entertain any questions.
Okay, we'll start with Beth Hutt-Wagner.
Thank you. And thank you so much, Wendy, for reporting back on that, because I know this is really, really important. So just 2 quick questions. One, if they were to say no, gosh forbid, would that affect the way we budget for reading program? Noah, 1 minute, please. Sorry. Could that affect the way we budget for reading supplies for next school year? And thus, would that affect the way we instruct next year? And then just add-on question is, and maybe Dr. Brummett, you know this, how many other districts are petitioning this as well? And is there any sense that, in talking to other superintendents, that districts want to work together to make a change here, or kind of what's happening with other districts that might be in the same boat and share the same concern as we do?
Right. I can answer the question about what other districts are doing and that process. the CAPS did a survey, and apparently about 60 to 70 districts are submitting a waiver. And many of them are in the same boat as us. They are part of the Readers Use the Units of Study program out of Columbia. And so we've been encouraging to each district's been encouraged to either work together or certainly reach out to the publisher to get as much information from them about the research, the equity standards, the science of reading. So there's collaboration going on there. A few districts that I've spoken to are actually going to adopt one of the 7 programs. Some admitted to me that they really didn't have a program to begin with or a curriculum. So for them, it was not a big deal. They knew they had to do something. And I think some districts simply haven't told the state what they plan to do, because that survey, I think I counted maybe 50 people didn't respond at all. Maybe they're silently protesting. I don't know. So there's just a wide range of things going on, a lot of complaints to the State Department of Ed, to the legislative body about this is really not what we believe the legislation was intended to do. Wendy, I think there might have been a part of that question that you could respond to.
Yeah, I'll go start with the first question. Beth, that you mentioned what would happen for next year. And as Dr. Brummett said, our intention would be that if our application were declined, that we would then ask for the extension, because it would be too late in our budget process to make this change for next year. We wouldn't have the funds available. So next year we would have to do that work then that we would typically do when we're shifting our curriculum and looking for a new program. We are currently gathering information. I've had literacy coaches going out to different workshops by the state that are allowing us to see the programs that are on the list. We've gotten samples. We're looking at, should we have to go down that road? Which ones would we want to have in a field study, which is typically our process when we're looking at a new program. So that would be the work of next year for sure. And then you would see that in the budget. Also, I wanted to tag on to what Dr. Brummett was sharing about the collaboration. Not only are the RESCs providing opportunities for district leaders to collaborate, our RESC is CREC, so they provide opportunities for workshop. There's one this week. But I'm also part of a more informal group where some assistant superintendents put out the call, and there's a number of us that meet we're meeting monthly. We gather information from what's your town doing, who have you talked to. So I've gotten a lot of good information about that. We've shared ideas for the application, people who are applying for a similar thing, using the same programs like Foundations for Phonics or Units of Study for Reading. You will see a lot of the same information in our applications for that reason. There's a lot of collaboration. Did we answer each part of that? I can't remember if there was something else you asked.
No, thank you. And I'm sorry for asking 2 really big questions at the same time, but both of your answers gave me a lot of understanding as we move forward. So thank you for your diligence and for answering those.
Okay, and Amy Parati.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to take a quick step back and, maybe just for the public's benefit, there was a presentation that Dr. Brummett gave, I think it was a month and a half ago, maybe, about this new legislation that came. And I think it wasn't just a reminder, as an unintended consequence, I think for, you said 60 to 70 districts that aren't using one of these approved programs. I think that the intention of the bill was to focus on school districts with lower reading scores, maybe a bigger gap, and trying to help them. And so I think a reminder, and Wendy, you can correct me, but at some of our curriculum meetings, and I know we talked about at the board meeting when we talked about this, our reading scores are above state average. So in Newington, obviously I'm not I'm not a teacher. I haven't been trained in the science of reading and any of this, but looking at our numbers, and I'm sure there's always room to improve. And I think every district has room to improve and want every student 100% at a, proficient reading level. But in general, our district is doing above average than some of the other schools in the state, school systems in the state. So I I just wanted to lay that out there. And then, there's definitely a lot of political stuff going on about this and the science of reading and how students learn and all of that. And I think that it's important to also note that, as Wendy and Dr. Brummer had said, that there's not just one program that Newington uses, there's many programs. And I remember my kids' online learning, they do, the units of study, but also the phonics, that like A, apple, that just repeated every day. I learned it when Zoe was in kindergarten, and then first grade, it was a thing so they're, learning the phonics along with everything else. So I just thank you for all the work, Wendy, that you're putting into this waiver. I know that it's a lot of extra to prove that our reading program is sufficient, but also if we don't get the waiver next year, there will be a lot more work to do to find a new program. And we want to find a program that is going to obviously benefit our students, and it might cost money, but we have to do what's best for the kids. So I just want to put that out there and thank you for your work.
All right. Thank you. Wendy, go ahead.
I could just respond to that. Thank you, Amy, for bringing up some of those important points. One of which is there does seem to be some misunderstandings when people talk about reading and they only look at one piece of reading. And that was part of what Dr. Brummett was showing at that board meeting that Amy was referring to, is that there are several components in reading, and we do have different resources that address. We even have instructional blocks of the day that address different components of reading, and explicit instruction is a very important part of all of that. So that's an important note. You also mentioned the data. So I just wanted to say at the last meeting of this group that I was speaking about, one of the things that was shared is that some of the districts that currently use one of the programs that's on the list are not happy with it. And they're not getting the results they want, but they also don't like it. It's not meeting their needs. So they were actually saying, we were in the process of looking to move away from this, and now we're being told we have to stay with it. So that's just another important note to come into this. It wasn't good for the rest of us to hear that might be what we're asked to do when our colleagues are telling us they would prefer to move away from it at this point.
Thanks, Wendy. And just a point of clarification, the CAP survey that went out revealed that only 12 districts statewide currently use one of those programs that are approved. And to Wendy's point, many are getting poor results or are realizing that they're not, reaching all the students, and they're having to supplement as well. So again, our position is there's no one size fits all. And I serve on a reading committee at the state, and we're trying to get some clarification from our legislators about where they want this to go. But I appreciate our opportunity to update the board. And again, thank you to Wendy and her reading team for getting this work done. It is a huge, long process, hours. So I'll turn it back to Dr. Fletcher.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you for all the updates there. All right. So now we're going to move on to agenda item F, which is our new business. And the first item on the agenda is the report on the enrollment projections. Would that be Mr. Farisi?
It's Mr. Farisi. I'm just going to kick it off quickly that typically we do this a little later, but we thought it'd be very important for the board to get a sense of our enrollment, our staffing prior to our budget next week. So you can see where we're at and how we make all these decisions about where we need teachers, where we don't need teachers, and class sizes and all of that. So Mr. Farisi's been hard at work, and I'll turn the mic over to him.
Thank you so much, Dr. Brummett. And I would also share, to put this in context, if I could just help us rewind back to the beginning of the year, Dr. Brummett facilitates a committee, the Plans Council, and the Plans Council launches in September, and we end around the end of October, beginning of November. And that's an opportunity, the first part of an opportunity in our budget process, the system that we use, for staff to be able to present and share with us data that would support any new staffing or program needs that we might have to consider for the upcoming budget as we start trying to put our heads around, what are our needs for the upcoming year. As that process continues, what we also do is we look at where were we last year, and where are we this year? And so we have the plans proposals that come forward. I presented to you on December 2nd, the staff allocation and class size report to be able to show you kind of where we were last year, where we are this year. And that kind of sets the stage and allows me to launch into this report, which really is our enrollment projections for where we're looking and think we're going to be for next year. So that's kind of the continuum of the process. And then I know next week, Dr. Brummett will, present with you even greater detail around what budgetary needs are there for us and based on some of this. So as you take a look through the report, some of the highlights that I would mention would include just simply that we use a combination of the New England School Development Council to support our projections for next school year and beyond. So NESDEC does a great job of really looking at our historic numbers and then looking at what would be upcoming. Some things that they aren't able to account for are opportunities where students in 12th grade need to stay with us a little bit longer and carry on in our schools to be able to finish for a 5th year at high school. Students who would go into like a transition academy program, so that isn't accounted for. Students that we would declare as seats from the open choice program that would be coming in, they can't account for that either. Or if there are students returning back from, let's say, magnet schools or parochial school settings, returning back to the Newington Public Schools, most of the time they can account for any developments that are going up when they are made aware of those developments going up. So when they gather town census information, and if that's already been approved or there's a certificate of occupancy upcoming, then they're able to kind of include those. Sometimes there is, and sometimes there is not. We might be aware of some developments that are going up, but the CO hasn't been released yet, so they might not have that in their data. So those are just important factors to consider and think about because the data itself, which are on the preceding pages, definitely help us give an estimate of where we think we'll be. And then we need to kind of pull in all that other data and really take a close look. You'll find as we kind of go into the document that you'll see the NESDEC reporting and projections. And then as we go a little further, one thing I really like to focus on are just the impact that it will have on classroom teachers. I need to know what our staffing is going to look like. Are we going to have enough staff in our classrooms? Do we think that we are going to be at a high enrollment and potentially need to add a class at any given grade level or in a department? Do we need to reallocate staff at a certain grade or in a department? So those are key factors. So I won't go through the entire NESDEC report with you. The projections are there. I know that that's been out for a little while now. But I do want to share with you how we then take that information along with the other factors that I said are not included in the report. And we then get to take a look at this data, which really starts to help me understand what are our school-wide needs, where are they this year, and what are we looking for and projecting for next year. So I take all the information that I've already mentioned that either is in the NESDEC projected report or outside of it, as well as work with the building principal and kind of create what you'll see here, which gives me a great projection of what we need. And you'll see at almost every school to date, we are not looking to shift anything really in regards to classroom teachers. At the elementary level, we're looking to keep everything as is. So Anna Reynolds, we go across, we have projected possibly 8 less students overall. That is not in one particular grade. It's spread throughout the school building. So it does not indicate for me a need for any type of change at this point, nor Mr. Smith, Principal Smith. Equally, when we go and talk to Mr. Marciano and we look at Elizabeth Green, looks very similar. They're going up about 6 students. Again, not looking to make any shifts or any adjustments. John Patterson has one of our more significant shifts, but only at 10 students. We're not really seeing a huge need at any grade level to either go up or down staffing. we would maintain what we have so we can accommodate the class sizes that they have and keep them equivocal throughout the elementary schools and equally at Ruth Chafee with Mrs. Lawrence Blunt. As we go down, you can start to take a look at both of the middle schools, Martin Kellogg, John Wallace, respectively. Again, no significant change there. And then at the high school, we're not seeing any significant change either. When we take a look at some of the other data that helps inform us, we look at what is the Transition Academy going to look like for us next year. And in working with the program coordinator, as well as projecting into what next year will look like, students who will graduate, students who will be coming up from the high school into the Transition Academy, they're going to remain stable. Out of district placements, we look at trend. We're trending around this number, so we look stable there with Magnet as well. Open choice students, we are going to increase our enrollment. We're currently at 123. When we reported to the state, October 1st, we are at 125. Since that time, 2 students have left the district. However, we will look between a combination of students graduating 12th grade this year, as well as new enrollment. That will give us a projected seat enrollment of 127 students. Those students are already calculated into the numbers that I showed you in each school above. So that would not be in addition to, those are already calculated in. And equally, we look at our 5th year seniors that will need to continue at Newington High School. Those are there. And then some of our homeschool students. So we're really looking fairly stable overall as far as enrollment is concerned. There are a couple of other factors that we do take into consideration. And I'd like to just present this tab now. When I look at the totality of our staffing, right now you'll see for our 2022-23, our instructional staff is at 368.4. When you include administration into that, you have 398.85. When we go and project out to next year, we will reduce our overall instructional staff. We will reduce that in the area of a mathematical coach, which you'll see right here below. And we will reduce that in the form of intervention at John Wallace Middle School, as well as reading teacher support at both Ruth Chafee and John Patterson. So that number is going to come down to 366.25, which is less 2.15 instructional staff. Equally, when we get to our instructional staff and including administration, we will right now be increasing 0.55 in the Assistant Director of Student Services district-wide to support our increasing population of students who have significant needs. And that will then take our overall reduction of staff to 1.60. When you reduce and then add in the last component, that's the overall reduction for all staff. There were some, as I mentioned earlier, planned proposals that will be moving forward. One is a theater workshop that will go forward at no additional staffing required, in a Portuguese world language course with no additional staff required. Oh, and I'd like to mention just above, these reductions are primarily due to a temporary grant funding that will go away for next year. So we have to be responsible in how we use that grant funding when we no longer have it. We have to relook at our staffing that we had pre-pandemic, and then make the responsible decisions to move forward with what we can operationalize or not. And you'll see also a plans proposal for an Assistant Director of Student Services to increase from a 0.45 to a 1.0, and that would be a 0.55 increase overall. And then we are going to move forward by state statute with a bilingual program, and we're working to meet the needs there. We do have some needs that aren't represented right now through plans, and those are just listed here below for you to see. But I know you're also going to see that in the budget books that you're going to receive, I believe, after Dr. Brummett's presentation next week. So these things are just areas that we keep looking forward to as goals that we'd like to consider for the Newington Public Schools, but at this time might not be able to go forward in funding. So with all that said, I would pause for a moment. I see a few hands raised. Dr. Fletcher, I'm not sure if you want to address that.
Sure, let's do that now. We'll start with Danielle Drozd.
Thank you, Dr. Fletcher. I have two quick questions. I can answer one, and then we can come back around to me. However you want to do it, because it's weird when we're online. So my first question is to Mr. Farisi. I'm confused. I feel like, I don't know if it's an online thing, a rope-a-dope thing. Can you go back? And I raised my hand. I wish it hadn't gone forward because it was kind of a few minutes back in your presentation. You had said that there's 125 kids for open choice, down to 123 already accounted for. Then you said the number 127, and then you said an additional 16. So at the end of the day, I wrote down all these numbers. I don't know what they mean. What exactly are we looking at next year for the number of open choice students potentially coming to Newington?
Thank you for the question. I can clarify all of those. I promise it's not a rope-a-dope. So we currently have 123 open choice students in the Newington Public Schools. We have to declare 16 open seats for next year, because what that is accounting for also are students graduating Newington High School or leaving the district.
Is it 16 additional seats?
It is 16 total seats from those that we need to go from 123 up to 127, as well as accounting for students who will be graduating, which I think it's close to 10 students. So, 11 students, and then plus 6 more seats would get us to the 127. Thank you. Oh, and you had a second question?
I do. So my other question is at the very end, and I know it's not like this is a budget thing, but with the plans that it was approved, and I know that it's not the board's responsibility to approve plans that is not in our purview. But, I hear so much about the social emotional school counselor and the need, and, behind closed doors and meetings, we can't share what we're talking about, but we always talk about how we need more help at the high school. When maybe this is more to Maureen, when you bring up the budget presentation, why it's more important to add a 0.55 assistant director for student services over adding a social emotional school counselor. So I'm just curious what the rationale behind that is.
Well, we're hoping that is going to be grant funded. We have applied for a grant at $120,000, which is the cost of that position, because it would likely be someone with quite a bit of experience. We're hoping to hear before the budget season closes out, and the board may direct me to reprioritize. So that is something that could be evolving throughout our budget process. Hopefully we'll hear, so I can at least report to the board where that stands.
Okay, all set. All right, so Richard Leverrier is up next.
Thanks. So I just wanted to make sure that I'm understanding this correct. And Danielle did ask pretty much what I was going to ask about the open choice. So I just want to be crystal clear. The 16 declared seats is going to bring us to the 127 number, not 127 plus 16. Is that right?
That is absolutely correct. It brings us up to a declared 127 seats for the Newington Public Schools for next school year. Yes.
So why? Because if we need 125 to accommodate with the state mandate to get funding, why 127? Are you anticipating that statistically 2 may leave the district like they did this year?
We often have students who come and go. We often have students who start with us, and then oftentimes their registration to a lottery for a magnet school doesn't close until October 1st. So oftentimes, if they start with us and then they get into their magnet school of choice, even after they've started with us, they'll leave. So yeah, we do run into that. So I always account for a couple extra, just so we kind of hit our target. We also try to maintain 3% of student population of open choice students to our overall population. That does support a considerable additional funding that goes along with that as well. So there are certain numbers and targets that we try to meet.
So hypothetically, if we went with 125 instead of 127 and 2 left, would we be not in compliance to get funding, or would we still be getting the funding?
The funding structure changes all the time, whether you're in the 2% range, the 3% range, the 3.5% range. And only 2 leave, great. But other years we've had 5 leave, we've had 5 come. It's we're always uncertain. We always try to maintain a certain level of students, and we want to also support the program. It's an excellent program.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Richard. Jessica Weaver.
Yeah, just to kind of piggyback on Ms. Strode's second question, I guess regarding some of those plans proposals, because obviously those look like the ones not moving forward look like some pretty important ones, from math instruction to world language. So I'm just curious, is that not going forward to the budget, or like in the presentation? Not trying to fast forward to next week already, but are those just already pre-cuts or pre-nos before we actually get to the budget presentation?
Currently, they are not in the budget for next year. When I present to the board, you'll understand, or you'll hear that we've got to make up for some ground because of underfunded budgets in recent years. So in order to keep our ask as low as possible, adding the world language program would have been, I believe, over $500,000 to implement. And we just had to prioritize based on knowing, that there will be only some limited dollars to go around. So the board, again, as I said earlier, with the social emotional position, and as happened last year with the library media specialist, the board can direct or make recommendations that we put things in, but we, the number already is looking a little higher than we might like. So I just caution that we have to make sure our ask is reasonable. And so some of those items would be very costly.
Thanks for clarifying. Appreciate it.
And Dr. Brumman, if I could just share a little data as well. We look at, a lot of data, and the needs are definitely there. I think when something doesn't move forward, it doesn't mean that we don't wish or hope it could. But we do also understand that the budget is limited. If you just take a look at some of this data right here, you start to see from some of our surrounding towns, just one piece of data that really sticks out, that right here in this column, the high needs, we're significantly higher than these other districts that are nearby. And this is when you add all together students with disability, EL population, as well as free and reduced lunch students who meet all 3. So our numbers are rather high when you look at free and reduced lunch, even compared to a lot of the other districts surrounding us. And so what this shows is that the management, the organization, the administration of some of these higher need populations requires more. And what we're trying to do is account for that. And oftentimes we try to account for that through staffing directly in the buildings. And in the past few years, we have done that and done that very well, thanks to the board support. And at this time, we also have to account for the other end, which is the oversight and administration of it all. We also, if we take a look, and it's not right here, but our out of district placement as well, our numbers are in a place where we need to keep, close eye on that and be able to manage it in a way that's effective and serviced well. So that way we can ensure that everyone is getting a proper program at a proper cost. And that's something that this additional person would be able to do as well. So, there are other reasons too for looking here. And I think we try to balance both very well, and we'll continue to do that and keep our eye on both equally. And this is just a year where we're seeing the rise significantly in students that have kind of higher needs, as the state would identify it as. So it's just something to think about as we do go into the process. So I just wanted to share that as well with what Dr. Brummett shared.
All right. Is that everything for your presentation?
It is, yes. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you. Dr. Brummett, any closing remarks on this?
No, I think the board tonight got a little preview of coming attractions for the budget. You'll hear some of that information repeated Wednesday evening of next week. And then the board will be deliberating for many evenings as to whether what I have recommended in my budget is something you want to move forward to the board's budget or take a different direction. So stay tuned. We got a good presentation almost ready for you. And thank you, Mr. Freese, for the thorough analysis of our staffing and our current needs. And we are getting to be a fairly high need district. Dr. Fletcher.
Oh, Mr. Farisi, did you have your hand up again?
Yes, and I do apologize. I know that it was a question, I believe, of the board, and it might have been in a previous meeting. And I just wanted to share that I do have data that also shows us what we are looking at in projecting potentially for some of the new construction that is going up and the new developments that are anticipated. I want you to know that we keep a close eye on this, that we also work very closely with the town because they keep even a closer eye on it. But I did connect with the town prior to this presentation. This is my chart that kind of tells me all of the new construction that's going up in town and when it is anticipated to go up, and its current status is highlighted in yellow for those that were anticipated to be starting most recently. So you'll see the Cedar Point apartments, those are under construction. The CO is anticipated later in the 23-24 school year, so we don't anticipate any enrollment and or significant enrollment at this time. But when it does go through, it would be approximately 22.9 students spread across these 3 schools. So this is kind of how I'm looking at it and what I'm working with the town. Meadow Commons is another development going up on the Berlin Turnpike. Right now it's under construction. It just started. There's no CO and they don't expect anything for 10 to 12 months. So that wouldn't really impact until the following year. And then the Peckham Farm subdivision, 18-lot residence subdivision, residential, is under construction. Only 1 model home is up, no CO, nothing yet. So they haven't even put other homes up yet, just a model to go and see. The town does use a formula to help me project enrollment here at the bottom. And it's based off of a municipal fiscal impact and economic impact analysis that was done for the town by a consultancy firm. Back in 2021 when all these developments were going through. So I use and work with closely their numbers, and we're keeping a close eye on all that. So those will continue to come forward in future projection, enrollment projection reports, and we'll maintain this as we go.
Was that included in our packet by any chance?
That was not. I actually had 2 handouts for you this evening, that being one of them. And then the overall staffing where it showed some of the plans proposals and the reductions that were going forward or not. So those were 2 items that I was going to hand out additionally this evening. But we will make sure that those get to you.
All right. Perhaps maybe next Wednesday night we could have them available.
Absolutely, I will. Yes.
Okay. Anastasia Yop, you have a question or a comment?
I was just going to ask, could he email it to us? If that was a possibility, so we could have them ahead of time. Also, I don't know if I'm looking at this right because it's really hard to see on the screen. Is there only, it says 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Are there more below, or is that just what we can see now? If unless I'm looking at it wrong.
It
looks like there are more
for the new
columns,
constructions.
so-
For
yeah.
No, there are more. Let me get to that.
I was gonna say I can see that there's actually another column right there. So if there are more, I'd like to see all of them.
Yep. And there are the additional. So
it's more than 5. It's how many is it? I can't see the whole thing.
So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7.
Got it. But only how many are going to affect us this upcoming year?
Well, there are 3 that are actually under construction right now. And the
Okay.
Peckham Farm subdivision is only a model home for people to go and look at, but no other ground has been broken there.
Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, if you
Yes.
could email that would be faster than waiting till next week, and it'd be nice to look at. Thank you.
After I do the board policies and I have a moment break, I will put the links to both of those in the chat feature as well as email them out later.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much. All right, so that concludes our report on the enrollment projections. We're now going to move to the second item under new business, which is an action item, and these are the board policies. So this is going to be under Mr. Farizi's purview and Danielle Drost as the chair of that committee as well. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Mr. Farizi.
Thank you so much. And I would just share last board meeting, we had an opportunity to discuss the 4 policies that are before you this evening. Our hope this evening is to be able to finalize any questions you may or may not have, but move forward with a recommended motion and a vote on each of those 4 policies.
Okay. So hopefully everybody has had an opportunity to look at these once again. So what we, Jessica Weaver.
Yeah, I just wanted to preface and just say thank you for everyone. I think this was one of probably our best collaborations. I think every single member had something to say about 1 or 2 of these that was included in those. So I think we've had long discussions about them for a bit, and they were just super collaborative. So I just wanted to, while we have the time, say thank you for everyone for their input on these policies.
All right, thank you very much. So does the chair of that committee have any comment to make before we move forward?
I'm shaking my head no.
Oh, okay. All right, very good. So then let's begin. We're going to be first taking a look at policy 1312, which is public complaint. If somebody wants to read the recommended motion.
I can read it. Move the Board of Education approve the revisions to policy 1312, public complaints as recommended.
All right, motion is made. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, so the motion is made and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'm going to ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Michael Branda.
Yes.
Danielle Drost.
Yes.
Dr. Bruce Fletcher.
Yes.
Beth Mankey Hutt Wagner.
Yes.
Richard Leverrier.
Yes.
Amy Parati.
Yes.
Sam Sharma.
Yes.
Jessica Weaver.
Yes.
Anastasia Yap.
Yes.
The motion passed unanimously.
Very good. Moving on to policy bylaw 9132, the standing committees. Would somebody read that motion?
Move the Board of Education approve the revisions to policy bylaw 9132, standing committees as recommended.
Second.
Okay, the motion's made and seconded. Any discussion? Mr. Leverrier?
Yes, thank you. I do just want to echo what I said last week that under paragraph 3, I do think that is it's for me an issue that the chair of the board could discontinue any of the committees or specific duty assigned to a committee unilaterally. Again, I do think that should be something that should be brought to the board as a whole. I'm going to vote no. I think that this is something that maybe we could send back, make a change, and bring it back to the board as a whole to approve at a later time. For me, for that one reason, I'm going to vote no. Thanks.
Right. Any other comments or questions regarding this? Danielle Drost?
I just want to appreciate Richard for being very forthcoming in his reasoning. And, you know, it's not easy to be a person that votes no and other people don't. So, Richard, I just wanted to say that I respect that you have been very honest about how you feel about it. And that's what makes a board successful. So thank you.
Thanks.
Absolutely. Anyone else? All right. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Michael Branda,
Yes.
Danielle Drost,
Yes.
Dr. Bruce Fletcher,
Yes.
Beth Mankey Wagner,
Yes.
Richard Leverrier,
No.
Amy Parati,
Yes.
Sam Sharma,
Yes.
Jessica Weaver,
Yes.
Anastasia Yap.
Yes.
The motion passes 8-1.
All right. Thank you, everybody. And we're now moving to policy 5144, student discipline. Would somebody please read the amended motion?
Would the Board of Education approve the revisions to policy 5144, student discipline, as recommended?
Second.
All right. Motion has been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'm going to ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Michael Branda,
Yes.
Danielle Drost,
Yes.
Dr. Bruce Fletcher,
Yes.
Beth Mankey Wagner,
Yes.
Richard Leverrier,
Yes.
Amy Parati,
Yes.
Sam Sharma,
Yes.
Jessica Weaver,
Yes.
Anastasia Yap.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. We now move on to policy 5113.21, student absences and excuses, awards or recognition for attendance. Somebody please read the recommended motion.
I think Danielle dropped, but she's back. I don't know. I can do
I'm
it.
back. I was trying to look up that policy and I can't multi-tab on this computer. So, did anyone make the motion yet?
I didn't want to ruin your streak.
You go ahead, Jess.
All right. Move the Board of Education approve the revisions to policy 5113.21, student absences and excuses, awards or recognition for attendance as recommended.
Second.
Motion is made. Do I have a second? The motion is made and seconded. Any further discussion? Ms. Drost?
I just want to make, and I know that I should have already, what's the one that we said we weren't ready to, is there any way that someone can scroll down, because I can't, to show me this policy to make sure that I'm agreeing with that I know which this policy is, because I clearly can't double screen this.
Yes. So I might be able to lend some insight into that as well. This is one that we were going to research further. The recommendation was to add another mental wellness day for students. I did look up the legislation as well as check with legal counsel. If we do that, it's not legally permitted to do so without it being an unexcused absence. So a child would be absent, and that would go on their record. It will impact them. It will add to their absenteeism, where the current two legally do not. And we don't have statutory right to change that if we were to add another. So the policy that is before you right now is as it was. And I'm trying to get to it. It's, I guess me scrolling down is equally as difficult.
You don't need to scroll down. That's what I was remembering, and I was confused because I'm like, I thought we weren't ready to vote on this because we're waiting on more information.
That is accurate. And the more information that we found is that it would not be in our interest to do so because it may harm students more than it could help. And so it was recommended that we do not do it. It would be right here. The recommendation was to change in the second paragraph first sentence from 2 mental health days to 3. Again, we do not have the statutory right to do that, with it being an excused absence, as these 2 are. Only 2 are legally mandated as excused. We cannot go above that.
Anastasia has her hand up first.
Yes, I'm okay. I'm going to get to her in just 1 second. Okay, I needed to find that. Anastasia Yop, go ahead.
Hi, my question is for Steve. Steve, did you send us that information at any point? I might have missed it, in regards to where you found that it would be against, I guess, state statute where they were only allowed 2. Did we receive that at any time, or is that something that you just researched and are just kind
Yeah,
of
I have.
regurgitating?
Yep, thank you. I have not sent out the state statute, but it's easily accessible and I can do so.
My second question was, is there any way we can put this off for possibly like the next meeting? I forgot which motion that is. A motion to table, I think, because I did want to do a little bit more research. I know you have that, but I didn't see anything. So I was wondering if that's something, because I know there are a lot of changes being made, and with the current mental health crisis we have right now, I wouldn't want us to just say, let's vote on this now, and then something happens in legislation that allows this. I mean, we have a lot of children, and I have a lot of kids that have come up to me and said, I really, truly need this. And this is crucial, not only just in the high school, but like the middle school also. And although I don't have a middle schooler yet, I see the need. I mean, I live in a small neighborhood and I have kids knocking on my door, some who are, transitioning. And a student actually said, I'm really going through a tough time. And with the lack of people that I can talk to in my family and the fact that the counselors at the school are inundated, I mean, I might need that extra day. So thank you for that. I mean, I had a parent today at Stu say, I really hope this goes through. There are kids that are going through things that maybe they're not comfortable sharing, whether it be transitioning or just going through other things. And I would just hope that we could put this off just in case, cross my fingers, legislation does something about this, because there is that need. And, the kids are saying, we need this. We are going through these times. Thank you.
So I see, I think Ms. Weaver and Mr. Branda have their hands raised as well. But if I could, thank you, Ms. Yop for sharing all that. I understand. I do think that right now it's on the Board of Ed docket to be voted on as it already is. So it really is a non-vote item to some extent. So holding on it or just saying we simply aren't going to vote on it, we're going to leave the policy as it is currently. And then if we want to look to continue to revise it or get the information that I was able to receive to you all to then determine if we need to do something different with this policy, I think would be a very thoughtful thing to do. But I'll let others speak as well.
Thank you.
All right, I'll let you guys speak and then I'll give some suggestions. So Jessica Weaver.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I mean, I think we all are in support of mental health days. I think this is really just not an issue of our jurisdiction, right? Like, I think those of us that want to advocate for more mental health days, I mean, we're working with state legislators on that. This is a state statute. I think that actually just went into effect recently too.
Just this year.
Yeah, this past year, the 2 mental health. So we actually had no mental health days before. So because I was like, I recall this being changed before for the 2 mental health days. And I was just going to say, if I put out the motion as recommended, in the packet, it says 2 mental health days. So this, as Mr. Freese said, doesn't necessarily change anything. I just wanted to put the motion out there so we could actually have discussion from a Robert's Rules of Order perspective. But just so I can rescind the motion, I believe, and I'll defer to Dr. Fletcher on this. But I think as the
Which is-
person, so I'm happy to do that. And again, we can have more discussion on this as policy committee, but I really think our hands are tied given the state statute. And I think, best efforts to advocate at the state legislator level for changes on that. Thanks.
So let me address that very quickly, and then we'll let Mr. Branda speak. But yes, the person that has made the motion can actually move to rescind the motion. The person that seconded it the first time does not have to be the one to second it this time. So if that carries, then it's taken off the docket. Okay, hopefully that is clear. I know Robert's Rules of Order is so simple to understand. Mr. Branda.
Thanks, Dr. Fletcher. Just really quick, something Ms. Yap, you said kind of made me raise my hand, and Mr. Farisi and Danielle, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, but if something did change at the state level where they said we could have 3 for our students, I understand we might rescind this motion, but even if this passed, that we could still change. Like, this is an ever-changing policy document. So if the state did say, hey, now we're going to up the 2 to 3 because of all the things that Ms. Yap, you explained, which are totally valid, we could always come back and send a draft and just update the number from 2 to 3. Nothing just because we would vote yes on this wouldn't lock us in to, we're not like grandfathered in. We can't advance our policy. So I just wanted to make that clear too.
And that is correct as well. Danielle Drost?
And if we don't vote it in today, again, Mr. Freese, tell me if I'm wrong, then right now, if a kid calls in for mental health wellness day, it's not an excused absence because this policy hasn't been put into place yet. So we kind of, yes or no? I could be wrong.
No, this policy is in place. This
Okay.
is the policy that's in place. So as Ms. Weaver shared, this was legislated last year to go into effect for this year. So last year as a policy subcommittee, we worked on this and we added that paragraph in the middle and voted it in. So this is what's currently in place. Students are eligible for 2 mental wellness days. So that is already there. Yes.
So in essence, another vote today is just redundant. So, I mean, it's a matter of public record.
Yes.
What is the public record going to show? And I'll leave it to you, Ms. Weaver, because you made the motion. If you choose to rescind it, you can move to rescind your motion.
Thank you. Yeah, and I just wanted to clarify one more thing that Ms. Rose wasn't on the committee. This was revised in September 8th, 2021. So we had changed that right before she was reelected to the board. So it was changed, but and it's now not last year. It's 2021, so 2 years ago now. All right, so I am going to move to rescind the motion that I just made. Do I have to say the whole motion?
I'll second that rescinding.
Yeah. You can read the motion that you're rescinding.
Yes. I will move to rescind the motion. Hold on, I just have to go back. I'm sorry, this is so sloppy. Okay. Move to rescind the motion titled Move the Board of Education approve the revisions to policy 5113.21 student absences and excuses, awards or recognition for attendance as recommended.
And I'll second that.
Motion to rescind has been made and it has been seconded. I don't think there's any need of further discussion, so I'm going to ask the clerk call the roll on the motion to rescind.
Michael Branda,
Yes.
Danielle Drost,
Yes.
Dr. Bruce Fletcher,
Yes.
Beth Mankey Hutt Wagner,
Yes.
Richard Leverrier,
Yes.
Amy Parati,
Yes.
Sam Sharma,
Yes.
Jessica Weaver,
Yes.
Anastasia Yap.
Yes.
The motion to rescind passed unanimously.
All right. And just an FYI, I was the chair of that committee when we made that revision. I remembered it now. Well, that concludes all of our new business. So at this time, I'm going to go to agenda item G, which is our public participation on any matter related to board responsibilities. could you all just check your microphones, make sure they're muted, please? Please state your name and the street you live on. You do not need to give out your street number. And we do limit your participation to 3 minutes. Okay. Seeing that there is no public participation at this time, I will go to agenda item H, which is remarks by our board members. So if you wish to make a remark at this time, please raise your hand and I will call on you in the order the hands are raised. Okay, Jessica Weaver.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I think last meeting, unfortunately, we talked about it again, but just recognize there's a lot of gun violence this week, and in Monterey Park, Half Moon Bay, and unfortunately, again, another school shooting in Des Moines, Iowa. So I just wanted to keep that at front of mind, obviously, putting the victims of gun violence there, but also, raise, I think Mr. Brennan made a great point too, of just continuing to raise that issue of not only the mental health of our students, but the mental health of our teachers, just keeping that at a forefront as we go into budget process and putting safety at definitely one of our priorities as well. And I know that's been reiterated throughout our administration. So I just wanted to put that out there. I didn't get a chance last night at town council to say thank you to Sharon Braverman for her time on the Board of Ed. So I just wanted to publicly say thank you to that. And then also say, I did mention our joint Board of Ed town council meeting. Kudos to Beth Mankey, who's always been advocating for that. And I think, and I know it's on Dr. Fletcher and Mayor Del Buono to kind of coordinate that, but I just wanted to reiterate that and just kind of the importance of making sure, because I know we always say it's going to be a tough budget year, but I just really want to make sure that's clear. And really just I know there was comments about kind of like how budget works and like what committees and that kind of stuff, but I just want to make it clear, like the whole board is going to be doing the budget process, and then I'm hopeful that we can have, a dialogue with town council, because there's a lot of need, as we already reiterated tonight. So I just am hopeful kind of going into next week we can have that kind of discussion. And also kudos to those who like Miss Making Hot Banner, who had mentioned this before, because I just think it's one of the things we've been pushing for a while. And if we're going to have a lot more need this year, given our past budgets, I just want to make sure we go in with those kind of expectations. So thank you and have a great night, everyone.
Thank you. Beth Hudwagner, you're up next.
Thank you. I just wanted to say thank you to Jessica. I think I just really appreciate you kind of at the end of meetings the past few weeks, because just kind of centering our thoughts. And I think that there are so many things going on at a meeting, and it's really important to just kind of think about why we're here and what we're doing. So I really appreciate you centering us. And then I'm going to do it's almost like a tradition, but my plea for from the rooftops, a joint meeting between Board of Education and Town Council, so that we can go into budget season ready to work collaboratively and instead of at odds, and ready to do what's best for Newington and for our students, giving them everything they need while, yes, being fiscally responsible and just working together on that. So again, pleading, asking, please. And then finally, I think we all raised a lot of us raised some really great points about that need for the school social worker. And I know that there's in the plans proposal, looks like there's 2 possible SEL school counselors. I think we've never needed 1 or 2 or however many as much as we do right now. And I'm a firm believer as an educator myself that this is just my opinion, but that the academics cannot be fully reached and students cannot achieve their highest level of success unless they are mentally and emotionally ready to receive the education. That's just from my experience as an educator. So I just think that those social workers, and I just think that's a really important key piece. So, and then again, just thank everyone for really great and respectful and insightful dialogue.
Thank you. Richard Leverrier.
Yes, I wanted to just take a second to give a shout out to the NHS girls basketball team. Last week on Friday, they were recognized as a statewide game of the week, and they went into face a very good Glastonbury squad on the road and walked away with the W. So great job, ladies.
Thank you for the sports update. We always count on Richard for that. All right, Anastasia Yup. Are you still with us, Anastasia?
Oh, sorry, I was talking. So yeah, I wanted to say thank you, Jessica Weaver, in regards to, I was at the meeting last night and I did hear you, advocate publicly in regards to having the joint meeting between the town and the mayor. To Bruce, we were told that it's ultimately up to you and the mayor to make that decision. So that's what we were told last night. So maybe if you could reach out to her, if she doesn't reach out to you, whichever person has to make the first step, so we can get that going soon as we are approaching budget season. Another thing that I wanted to address was, and social media goes wild. I do see a lot of need for town projects being pushed. And I did want to address something. So I'm on the finance committee with Sam and Danielle, and we all voted as a board that we felt that John Wallace was a project that needed to be completed because it affects school safety. There aren't any doors on the classrooms. Please correct me if I'm wrong. I know Dr. Brummett, Dr. Fletcher, you were all there. We did vote as a board that we were going to advocate for this. But on social media, I know the town needs a new library, a possible parking garage, as well as a pool, but you can't do everything. And we as a board, we are the Board of Education, it was a unanimous vote that we were going to be pushing for John Wallace, to get the necessary renovations they need. But on, the news outlets that we use, I see that some people are pushing for a pool. Student safety is huge. And I think with budget season and always being such a tight thing, that we should stick together, like you guys always say, and ensuring that we advocate for John Wallace being renovated. Now, we've had multiple discussions in our finance meetings about why it wasn't done in the past. I've only lived here almost 3 years, but I viewed it. I was in the school with Amy and Richard, and we saw that there are no doors in the classrooms. That is a safety issue. So I understand we need a new pool. I understand we want a parking garage. I understand they want to do the library. But the safety of the students is important to me, and I know it's important to all of you. That's why we unanimously voted on this. So I would just say, I understand, there's a lot of things on social media going on and people wanting to do things, but I would hope as a board we would stand united to say that project should be one that comes first before the other projects that are looking to be done. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And Mr. Brando.
Just really quick, and I know that we don't usually respond, but I just, my understanding was that Wallace is a part of the capital improvement budget that is already moving forward. So, and I 100% agree with you, Anastasia, that needs to get done. One thing that struck me, and I just wanted to make clear, and I don't think I've been public on this, but the pool issue is actually a safety issue. And so when we consider the children in our community, I think that's the leading driver of the pool issue. And we don't have to get into it at a Board of Education meeting, but I think a lot of the concern with our pools is the fact that they are so old, and there is some serious concern about the children using the pool and that pool basically going kaput. And I think that's the reason for the pool needs. But I 100% agree on Wallace, and my understanding was that we've already pushed that forward, and that the money's already allocated. So, and somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but and I know I understand that things kind of get shifted around based on priorities. So I think if we hear anything that project is getting pushed, we 100% have to advocate as a united front to make sure it gets done.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Branda. And Amy Parati.
I was just waiting for Mr. Brandon to say it, but I don't think he mentioned that. I think the hope is that the pool would be covered by funding from the state. I know our legislators are working on getting money for that. So I'm not sure who you're referring to as pushing pools over Wallace. I don't know that that's happening. I know you don't see my things. So I think as a parent and a member of the town, I think we all have a right to, you know, have our opinions. As a board, you're 100% right. And we all agreed that Wallace is a priority. So I just want to put that out there.
All right, thank you. Ms. Drost?
Thank you. I just want to say this was a great short meeting, so I don't want to make this any longer, but I do want to, as we go into budget season and we talk about John Wallace and we talk about whatever we talk about, I wouldn't be true to who I am if I didn't say that when we say we get money from the state, even if it's from John Wallace or for whatever reason, it's still tax money, even if it's not directly out of Newington. So I do want us to be conscious of, like, state money isn't free money. So as we move next week and we have those conversations like that, we're mindful of that money from the state comes from our income taxes.
All right, thank you. And thank you, everybody, for your comments. Dr. Brummett, any final remarks?
No, just to confirm that the board had already voted on the capital plan. It does include the John Wallace wings. The money has now been requested from the town as a pay-as-you-go project. So that will be the point of deliberation among the town council members when they get to that point in their budget process. Thank you, Dr. Fletcher.
All right, thank you, everybody. And I will take the initiative to reach out to the mayor and try to set up a joint meeting. I think it's a great idea. I would like to talk to Beth Hutt-Wagner before I do that, so we can work together as well, okay? So this is a record for this seated Board of Education. We are less than 2 hours on a regular board meeting. Congratulations, everybody.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thank
Motion's
you.
made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? You can stay here. Good night.
Good night.
Thank everybody. Thanks, Deb. Have a good night.